Shri Krishna Nam Sankirtan ki jai. Gaur Premananda. Umajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Ajunulambita Bhujo Kanakavadato Sankirtanaika Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dwijabaro Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahorito Kodadai Pushpabanto Chitta Sando Tamuno Vandeham Shri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charano Sakho Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Subala Priyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Shri Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara Ki Jai. Shri Shri Dauji Gopal Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Gaur Nityananda Ki Jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda. So, welcome everyone. Continuing our discussion today, we move into the third chapter of this book, which is a work in progress, tentatively entitled Sakya Pranay. As we heard yesterday, Krishna liberated the Aghasura, and this was celebrated by the gods, who had a difficult time really understanding it all. But it speaks to us of the extraordinary, merciful disposition of Krishna. Out of all the different forms of the Godhead, as the Bhagavatam says, the faces of God are asankhya, although it lists a number of principal avatars and does a very, comparatively to any other of the sacred texts, exhaustive, it offers really an exhaustive explanation of Avatar Tattva. It's one of the subjects of the Bhagavatam, said in the second canto. in the 10th chapter that there are 10 basic subjects of the Bhagavatam, 9 of which are sheltered under the one, which is the shelter giving. That one, the latter is, of course, Krishna, and avatars of Krishna are an aspect, let us say, of Krishna that is sheltered in him, and the creation, primary, secondary, liberation, so on and so forth. There are 9 other ones, but of them, the avatar tattva is significant. And as I say, amongst the sacred text, the treatment of the avatar tattva is far exceeds what we find in the Bhagavatam and any other text, and it's been very has been very useful for the Goswamis to help make their case. So the fact that the avatar tattva is said to be a secondary or a sheltered tattva under the shelter giving Krishna, that in and of itself, that fact about the Bhagavatam as it explains itself, tells us Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam, right? And then the Goswamis have, in their books like Laga Bhagavatamrita, for example, of Jiva Rupa Goswami, have really, you could say, perhaps following the lead of the 5th chapter of the Brahma Samhita that we were speaking about the other day. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found this when he was touring South India, brought it back with him, and he celebrated it. This book represents the tattva of my teaching, truth about my descent, or what we're all about. We bhaktas of Krishna, as he would, portray himself or think of himself as a devotee. The essence of the tattva is found in this book. And what we find in the book, of course, repeatedly, in the verses of the Brahma Samhita that are in praise of Krishna, he speaks about Durga, he speaks about Brahma, the book text speaks about Shiva, Ramadi, Murtishu, Ram, other Vishnu avatars, and so forth. And in all of those beautiful verses, beginning in verse 29, of course, that's prefaced by the whole description of Goloka. And then those beautiful prayers that Prabhupada likes so much, just really doing, weighing in on Avatar Tattva, right? And not only the avatars of Krishna, but the empowered positions in this world, spiritually empowered positions for the maintenance of the world that jivas can hold, positions like that of Brahman, Indra, and so forth. So extending that, and of course, the point I'm making is that each line ends with what? Govindam Adi Purusham Tamam Bhajami. So Govinda is the original Purusha. Yes. So this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meant when he said, this is the book of our Siddhanta here. That idea that Krishna is the source of all forms of divinity and everything else for that matter is the key to unlocking the secrets of the Bhagavatam, understanding it properly, context, and so forth. So, that amongst all of them, at any rate, relative to our discussion here today, reflecting as we are at the moment on where we concluded yesterday, was a lesson for the gods, a theological lesson that they're trying to sort out, because they have never seen something like this, that the comparison between the enmity of Agasura, and the fact that his very name indicates he's the very personification of impiety. So you have to look at it kind of philosophically, what's being said here is very, if you could take sin and personify it, impiety, and personify it, this is being contrasted with what we heard about the Krishna's cowherd friends. Sakam Vivad Vijag Kutapunja Punja, right? That their piety, it's like off the map. It's not. It's beyond piety. The word punya is used, but as I mentioned when we discussed that verse, the Goswamis have rendered it, and it can be done according to the grammar, beautiful. So Shukadeva is saying, what kind of beautiful activities did they engage in to attain this kind of status of such intimate association with the Absolute in his human-like form? So if you want to compare that, then the high end is kind of off the map of piety. It's beyond piety. It's the beauty of sadhana, a particular kind of sadhana, the ragmarg sadhana, following in the wake of the example of those entities, that those beings, those associates of Krishna who are his eternal entourage, who are half of the equation of the absolute. He being the object of love, they being the personification of that love. You can't have one. The point is without the other. So following in that ideal, and on the other end of the spectrum, way at the other end, the bottom, you take all the impiety and you could personify it together, something like that. You have someone like an Aghasura. And Krishna, the point is, liberated him. Liberated him by as a result of his heart swelling in karuna rasa. Became so big that the serpent choked on it. Impiety became embarrassed by that expression of compassion and karuna rasa on the part of Krishna for the cowherds. Aghasura had the idea to kill Krishna and the cowherds, devouring them all, and as a result, take the life out of all of the inhabitants of Braja. So it's another way in which he was not just focused on killing Krishna on Kamsa's behalf, but destroying the whole of the Braj, taking the life out of them. And Krishna, just by the feelings of compassion and karuna rasa for his devotees, this person, if you will, this yogi, was just like embarrassed to death by that. Right? It's just a way of talking about it, of course, to make the point. And his heart swelled in karuna rasa because his devotees were going in, and he was worried about them. What will happen to them? It's a python. They think it's a cave. They're not sure. They don't seem to be afraid. So he went in after them out of compassion, and as a result, Aga attained really his distraction, if you will, as a yogi, resulting from having acquired powers and so forth, was put aside. And what yoga was about, in the optimum, there's a famous yogi named Krishnanamacharya, South Indian yogi from the Ramanuja school. And what's famous about him in contemporary society is that he was the guru of Iyengar, who's a famous yoga guru in the Western world, became very famous. Iyengar and Patabi Joyce, the two most famous yogis in the whole yoga scene, if you will, who brought actual, more classical forms of yoga. He was their guru. And he openly stated that the goal of yoga is to attain Vaikuntha. So by yoga, Ashtanga yoga and this mystical yoga mixed with bhakti, one can attain Vaikuntha, for example, in Shantarasa. Yeah. So if you have, let us say this: if you have yoga, Ashtanga yoga mixed with bhakti, maybe you'll get what Pattabhi Joyce wanted. Pattabhi Joyce wanted what we would refer to as Sayuja Mukti. But if you have bhakti mixed with Ashtanga yoga, instead of yoga mixed with bhakti, then you can get like Krishna Namachari and hopefully Iyengar as well, attain Vaikuntha in Shantarasa. In Shantarasa, then one, to use a Catholic term, experiences the beatific vision. The Leelas of Krishna are not within the scope, so to speak, but the beautiful form of this case of Narayan, four-armed form. There's of the three of the four forms of mukti that are available, if you will, in Vaikuntha. Jiva Goswami makes the point that 3 out of 4 of them are forms of mukti in which Narayan is experienced internally, and only in Samipya is he experienced externally, where you render personal service to him. That's a little hard to maybe conceptualize and so forth. But this is the type of mukti from the Gaudiya point of view that Krishna Namacharya, this type of person, would attain. It's not our goal, our aim as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. We would like to follow the gopis and the gopas, right? But it's exalted, and to have attained that as the Atma, if you will, of Aga did. The Aga, this is all part of his body and the mind and the subsequent activities and so forth. His Atma remained untouched, but covered. Untouched by that, but covered. So just by the grace of Krishna, the God saw him, his Aga's Atma, he actually saw his Atma, saw it merge into the body of Krishna, the implication being that Krishna gave him this type of mukti, which they have not attained. It's very rare. Any type of mukti is rare, so to speak, of attaining Vaikuntha. So they were astounded and tried to kind of sort it out. But they were being shown, which is so much a central point to this whole Brahma Vimohan Leela from the point of view of Tattva, that Krishna is the Swayam Bhagavan. So it begins here. It will come out at the end. Brahma will say it in no uncertain terms in his prayers, and Brahma will see, of course, Krishna expand himself as all the cowherd boys and calves, and then show himself to be all those cowherd calves and boys at the end, to be himself. And from all of those selves, as he showed them as four-armed forms with Brahmas coming from them and universes coming from them, Mahavishnu's coming from them. I mean, it's just an unfathomable measure of Aishvarya or majesty, godly majesty, manifesting where? In Vrindavan, which is characteristic of Madhurya, sweetness, where the Aishvarya is absent. It's not absent, but it's in the background. It has to be there in the background in order for the sweetness to come out, and this will come out a little bit in the next verses that we discuss from the subsequent chapter, today's chapter. But at any rate, the measure of the Aishvarya cannot be found anywhere else that was found in the Brahma Vimohan Leela when Krishna revealed the position of himself as Swayam Bhagavan to Brahma. Not in Vaikuntha. There's nowhere else. So it was in Vrindavan. It's a point worth remembering that the greatest majesty has also been shown. Mm. But to speak of the sweetness that is unknown, if you will, to Vaikuntha. Mm. So as I said yesterday, well, Vrindavan looks like a small place, but everything's inside of that. All the Aishvarya you could imagine is there, right? Mm. But it's in the background. Mm. Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj once gave a nice example. Mm. And we could perhaps extend it a little bit to here in Costa Rica. Mm. Costa Rica is a peaceful country in Central America, which is, over the course of modern history, has not been the most peaceful place in the world. Mm. All right, there's been many revolutions and fighting and so on and so forth, but Costa Rica has remained very peaceful. Mm. And it has no army. Mm. So how can it be peaceful in that situation? With, like, Nicaragua was a very politically upset place with unrest and violence and so on and so forth. And it's right, it borders Costa Rica. So how could Costa Rica be safe and not have an army? Of course, the answer is that the United States military backs up Costa Rica. But it's even further, the United States military support in Costa Rica is even further out of the picture than it is in the United States. What I mean by that, in the United States, the military industrial complex is hidden. It's at, Area 51, where they make UFOs or whatever, and special things, special weapons and stuff like that. You don't see, in other words, in the United States, when the country celebrates its independence, for example, from Great Britain on the 4th of July, then they don't parade missiles through the street and tanks and so forth like they would, for example, in Russia during the Cold War, right? Russia would show its might and its power and so forth and so on. But the United States, they don't do that. All the power, which is considerable, right? It's all in the background. You can't see it. So people are peaceful because, after all, if you're everywhere you turn, there's machine guns and stuff, and tanks and stuff. It's a little bit like, doesn't lend itself to peaceful social intercourse and a lifestyle and so forth. And here in Costa Rica, well, that U.S. Army is there, but it's even more in the background because it's thousands of miles away, right? So you don't see it. And there's the pura vida. That's a pure place, simple, no problems here, everything good, right? But, and this was Sridhar Maharaj's point, he didn't speak about Costa Rica, but he's making the point that if Costa Rica should be attacked, then missiles and tanks will come out from everywhere, right? It'll pour, so they're all there. So similarly, in Vrindavan, all the power of the Godhead is fully present, but it's packed in the background. It's subsumed by the prema of the devotees. The prema of the devotees is bringing out something about Bhagavan that exceeds his Aishvarya, his Madhurya. Knowing him in an intimate way. Actually, to be really precise about it, the greatest display of Aishvarya is the Madhurya of Vrindavan. I think it was Baladev Vidibhushan made a comment like this in his comments on the Brahma's prayers, which are at the end of this Brahma Vimohan Leela. He said something like, what did he say? I won't be able to repeat it. I can't remember it precisely. But the point, anyway, the import of it is that, as I'm saying, the greatest Madhurya is Aishvarya, is the Madhurya, because the Madhurya of Braj, the love of the cowherd boys for Krishna, the love of the Gopikas for Krishna, the love of Yasoda for God. Hmm? These are all forms of love of God, who is all-powerful, right? The supreme, majestic, Radhika. This is extraordinary power that they have done this to the apps. They have that Madhurya, that bhakti is making. Hmm? Krishna is made out of that. Like I said, you cannot separate the two. The love of Krishna and Krishna. This is what we call achintya beda bedattva. It's inconceivable. It's another way of thinking about the word inconceivable. It's inconceivable. That power, who has the power to turn the all-powerful into someone who seems powerless, right? In the hands of his devotees, who is defeated by Sri Dham in wrestling, right? And has to carry him on his shoulders, for example. So this is important to understand these Braj Leelas that obviously appear very ordinary in many respects, look like maybe they're just stories that offer a moral lesson to us and so forth, but they're much deeper than that. That could not be the essence of all the sacred scriptures. That could not be, as we were speaking yesterday, about the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge, just some moral stories that we could draw from. Of course, we can draw so many things from them, the Leela, the stories that are applicable to our lives as sadhakas. And if we apply, then we'll enter into those stories. It's the story of God. That's what the Bhagavatam means, the biography of God in his most intimate moments, right? And there he is, simply playing, which is another way, as we've often said, that his supremacy for those who are paying attention is pointed out, because all of the gods and all of the goddesses in the Hindu pantheon, they've all got some weapon and some carrier or something to do. They can look at them. Shiva's meditating. Brahma's got 4 heads, trying to figure out how to manage everything, so on and so forth, right? And Krishna, when you come to him, well, he's got a flute. He's only playing. That's all he does. He doesn't do anything but play. He's a rich man's son, as far as cowherds go. Nanda Maharaj has 900,000 cows, so he has a carefree life. And the implication is, as I've often said, one who only plays must be all-powerful, because it takes power to play. All of you have come here to play with us here in Madhuvan. You had to have some power, some money in the bank, some time off from work. That's power. You store it up, and now you're going to spend it. So you're spending your power to come. But he has all power, therefore he's only playing. Because he's only playing, therefore the thoughtful person, the Gaudiya, will say, "Oh, he is the all-powerful among all the gods." Right? The Goswami says, this is the only school in which you can find this. Someone might say, my guru is Avatar. And what would you say? If someone said to you, my guru is an avatar, what would you say? You're a Gaudiya Vaishnava. What would you say? What would you say?
Say an avatar of book distribution, but...
No. No, you would say, really? Which kind? And they go, huh? They come up blank. What do you mean, which kind? Are you a Guna avatar? Are you a Leela avatar? Are you Shakti Vaisha avatar? Which type of Shakti Vaisha avatar are you? And so on and so forth, right? And so it goes. This is like to tie all that together, right, as the Goswamis have, and point to the position of Krishna so artfully, scientifically, if you will, or systematically, with scriptural reference, logic. We're in good hands. we're in good hands in the Gaudiya, hands of the Gaudiya founding acharyas and their theological, philosophical contribution to the world. Hinduism is like some of these Christians, they just blank out 33 million gods. They got to be crazy. It's got to be wrong, right? Think again. Think again. We can explain every one of them. What's their position? How they're all different faces, they're partial faces of God, and so forth, for different purposes, and so on. And here's the one, from where it all comes. And he's leaving it all for them to do so many things, so he can just play. That's all. He can't just play. Example, what would happen if a gopi or a gopa from Goloka, where all that knowledge is in the background so much that you might think they just look like ignorant, cow, cow maidens, milk maidens, and cowherd boys, uneducated. Um, what would happen if they come to this world? What if Rupa Manjari came to this world? And then we look at Rupa Goswami and we see, oh my God, he has so much knowledge. What kind of knowledge? That he would take the whole knowledge of the Vedanta and then interface it with the entire aesthetic theory of India. Two huge aspects of Indian culture. It's Vedanta and it's aestheticism, right, from Bharat, for example. Take these things and combine them together to make a case for a very, very compelling, very charming, very well-reasoned, scripturally supported argument that just, if you're in the theological world and that is your interest, and you come in touch with this, you got to, it's going to pause you. You have to pause. Well, this is interesting. What they're talking about here, my goodness. And of course, this is what our Paribar has done, Bhakti Vinod Paribar. We have managed to put Gaudiya Vaishnavism into the, let's say, on the stage of the world religions within academia, within Indology and so forth. And it's converting some of them, right? Even and it's just such a rich theological perspective. So there are journals about it. The Journal of Vaishnava Studies, and so on, and so many others. So some contribution of our Paribar, significant, but when Rupa Manjari, a simple village cowherd maiden, about 12, 13 years old, comes to this world as Rupa Goswami, then we see, oh, there's a lot of knowledge embedded in Vrindavan. These gopis don't look like they have that kind of knowledge, and if a sage comes, they'll just offer respects and listen to his discourse. But if they come to this world, as they do in Gaur-lila, we see all that knowledge comes out, because here it's required. Here it needs to be shown. They need to show the knowledge. And this is a form of Aishvarya. Aishvarya, the six Aishvarya, Samagasya, Viryasya, Ayasya, Shasriya. Jnana, Vairagya. So Gyan, this is one of the six opulences, right? The Gyan of the Goswamis, the founding acharyas of our Sampradaya, who wrote our texts and so forth, drawing on the Bhagavad and the Puranas and Vedanta Sutra and Upanishads and so forth, and the Tantra. It's just overwhelming. I cited Srinivasacharya the other day. It's worth saying again. Nana Shastra Vichara Naikanipuno Saddharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarano Tribhuvane Manyo Sharamyakaro. Vande Rupa Sanatano Ravigo Shijiva Gopalako Sadvasami Ki Jai. They took from all the revealed scriptures. I remember when I was young and first reading Prabhupada's books, and he's quoting this book and that book and another book, and I'm thinking, my God, how does he know all these things? Where were all these texts? So many, bringing them together. Of course, he followed what the Goswamis did. Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj once said, the Goswamis, these gopis, they took stones, like precious, like diamonds, hard stones, and they drilled holes in them. In terms of, he's making an analogy, what they did. It's not that Krishna attained Gopi Bhava. There are some examples of somebody attaining Vatsalya, Sakya, very, very rare examples. We have Jayadev Goswami, Chandidas, what was the other one? A couple of centuries before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in their songs about Radha and Krishna, their poems and so forth. So some insights about this, some information, but to take and make a system, a sampradaya actually, by which this can be systematically explained, supported from the scripture, and the means to attain it can be revealed in a systematic way that people can go there also. This is what they did. This is what they did. And they sorted out, they brought to us these truths about the Braj Leela that just magnified them, amplified them, made them known in ways that they were there, but they weren't known for the most part. Indeed, Chaitanya Charitamrita says they weren't known in Vaikuntha. They came here a little bit, but still people don't understand them. So you read Chandidasa's book, or you're going to understand it, but as for what it is. But if you read the Goswami's commentaries on, for example, then for example, Chandidas has, he's famous. He wrote he's one of the, what is that? Don Kali Leela, Don Kali, the play of the toll booth. Krishna setting up a toll booth and taxing the gopis. If you want to come this go up here, you have to pay a tax. Of course, what he wants is payment is Radha's love and so forth. So you find Rupa Goswami's rendition of that, and Raghunath Das Goswami. But prior to that, centuries before, there's a rendition of that coming from Chandidas. Right? So, but they're taking that and giving their renditions of Don Kali and bringing out so many things through their renditions that you won't find in Chandidas's edition, like the Priyanarmasaka, for example. You won't find them in Chandidas's edition, which is interesting because in Subal Mangal it said, in a previous life, Subal was Chandidas. You take it or leave it, but he was a special person. But the Goswamis, the architects of a whole sampradaya, and what a sampradaya! I mean, keep talking about it, keep hearing about it, keep understanding it. Mm? As you do, and you can speak about it. Mm? You can go as far as you like. You can debate with the Dwaitans. Mm? You know, the point, point for point for point for point for point, or the Madhvas, or the other Sampradayas, the Vaishnava Sampradayas, which is a little less um, um, acrimonious than our debates with the Advaitins would be. We love them too, um, in a broader sense. But my point, you can get whoever you can, or an modern atheist, and so if you know this teaching, you can go all the way to the point with the best arguer from the other side, and okay, you got your arguments, I've got mine. But, and it's a stalemate, but mine are more charming. Then he has to collapse. That's true. Krishna is a more charming idea. That's true. You have to, you have to accept that. So if their arguments are equal, in other words, you can make your arguments from scripture, and we can make ours and interpret it that way. Logic is, is a limited affair. So for whatever logic there is, there can be a counter logic. Is my point. This is what the sutras themselves say. Atarko pratishthanat. You can't get any real real stand. Sometimes you say someone has a good argument to the opposite. But if you know your Gaudiya Vedanta well enough, you can answer well. But still, it may come to a stalemate. And I say, but then we play the trump card. Yes, but ours is more charming. So then you have to accept it. It's more charming. It's more beautiful of an idea. We should live with such a, and it will make you more beautiful. It has a greater prospect. It offers greater prospect for you. Dwaitans want to be everything. Right? We want to capture everything. Right? We can capture it. We can turn everything, Brahman, into Bhagavan Sri Krishna, into Gopal Krishna. You want to be Brahman? Ooh. We want to take control Brahman. How do you control Brahman? Well, Brahman is everywhere, omnipotent. If you're everywhere, Mata, you cannot move. If you're everywhere, you cannot move, right? But by the bhakti of Krishna Sankirtan, of Krishna name, Brahman is moving. He's dancing. That is Krishna. He is Param Brahma. We made Brahman dance. You want to be Brahman? We want to make Brahman dance. You think that's not possible because he's everywhere. How can he move? Let us show you. Come, chant this mantra, and you will see Brahman moving. What is that? Right? You will sit still, staring at your Atma, as I said, in its likeness to Brahman. Sit still. But here, we'll give you a mantra that will make you get up and dance. Not to get up and move in relation to things of the world, out of illusion, pursuit of things that you feel that you need because you're empty, but a movement out of fullness, of completeness, that love really amounts to. Love is a movement that arises out of fullness. Even, materially speaking, in the true sense of the term, as far as we can get to true love here, selflessness. So the gods, they saw this extraordinary feat of Krishna. They couldn't quite understand it, but it's the beginning, the teaching of terms of tattva, as it shows up in this Brahma Vimohan Lila, because the soul, the Atma of Aga, entered into Krishna. It entered into Krishna, merged into Krishna. In his two-armed form, human-like form, right? And Krishna gave him a four-armed form. So that forearm form must be within him for him to give him that. And so this is the beginning. It will come out more as we go forward. So seeing this, anyway, the point is, as we go move forward with the narrative, we actually come to another few verses of the Bhagavatam. And tad adbhuta shrota suvajyagitika jayadi naikotsava mangalasvanam shrutvasvadhamnon te adja agato chirad drishtva mahishasya jagama vishmaya. The diacritics are messed up here, so might have a hard time reading some of the words, but this is basically what the text says here, that amazing redemption hymns of freedom, victory songs, and more were broadcast with musical accompaniment by the gods, even from realms of spiritual practice, and thus these auspicious transcendental sounds arising from various festivals therein were in hearing range, close, anti, to Aja, hearing range of Aja, a name for Brahma, who thus quickly arrived on the scene and was astonished upon experiencing such glorification of Mahishasya, Maha-Ishasya, Krishna. So here, songs of freedom, right? All I ever knew. Here they are. Songs of freedom. So the whole universe was singing them, right? The gods saw this. They're singing about it like, what happened? Sin personified. We saw the play of the cowards. We don't understand it, but it's pretty attractive. And in the midst of that, here comes this sin personified. And Krishna, one of the coward boys, Krishna, who's special, obviously, has liberated him, which is rare, and a special kind of liberation at that. And so they're singing about that, praising that, and trying to understand it. They don't have a position that was as exalted as that which was attained by Aga, by any stretch of the imagination. And they're living in heaven. They're so pious. So how merciful at the point is Krishna. This is another way of thinking his supremacy, right? Therefore, Uddhava, who was his counselor and guru in Dwarka, he said, who in their right mind would worship, take shelter, if you want to choose amongst all the gods and goddesses and manifestations of divinity, to take shelter, would choose anyone other than Krishna. He cited the example of Krishna's first act in this regard, the liberating of Aghasura's sister, Putana, who smeared poison on her breasts and tried to poison the infant. So defenseless, an infant, right? And to put poison on the breast, like I've said before. If someone did that, it'd be on CNN. Mother puts poison on breast to kill child, to kill infant. Take her to court. Terrible. But Krishna gave her but motherly love, gave her Vatsalya Bhakti. Uddhava was just like, his head is splitting, his heart is melting. Who in their right mind would take shelter of anybody else? So the merciful nature of Krishna, they're experiencing these gods. So these kind of songs are going now throughout the universe. And here the point is that they are reaching beyond the celestial realms to the planets of spiritual practice, like Satyalok and Janalok and Siddhalok. And they're not far from the Brahmalok. Of course, this is other dimensions. We talk about it as if it's like you're going to travel a certain number of miles and you're going to hit Siddhaloka. These lokas are other dimensions. This is a dimension. We're living in a dimension. As I said, everything that we're experiencing is within the theater of consciousness, and there are many, many shows going on. The theater is consciousness. It's like if you go to the modern theaters, you can go into the modern theater, and then there's just so many. You can go into this show, you can go, that show is always playing, that show is always playing. On the billboard, they got a dozen shows playing. There's a dozen doors you can go. You can pick this one or that one. You come into the lobby. And then there's so many channels. Right? You get on the airplane, and then they got so many channels, so many movies that you can watch. They're all playing constantly at the same time, right? Mm. So the whole of our experience in this world, is like just one channel, in a theater of consciousness. And Svargaloka is another channel. Brahmaloka is another channel. Siddhaloka is another channel. Pataloka, another channel. All possibilities within the realm, the broader theater consciousness. Consciousness is the basis of it all. It's most fundamental. It's more fundamental than time and space, which for a long time scientists have maintained. Well, science, time and space are like the most fundamental realities. Now that's come into question. And those thoughtful scientists today, intellectuals, who have brought that into question, have concluded otherwise. With us, consciousness is most fundamental. This is the age-old ABCs of Vedanta, of the Upanishads. We're talking about the PhD. We're talking about what is the consciousness of consciousness. Krishna Chaitanya. What is the consciousness of consciousness? Krishna Chaitanya. Chaitanya means consciousness of who is consciousness himself, right? Of course, it is love. That's what it is. It's the love of Krishna for Radha. This is the consciousness of consciousness. It's such a big topic, right? The beginning topic is that the most fundamental reality is consciousness, and this is just one theater. So when we talk about Siddhalok, Brahmalok, Slok, that lok, Indralok, these are all the other channels. Oh, right? So it was taking place near him. He's described here as Aja, the unborn. So means he's very special amongst everyone. Everyone is born except Aja. There was no one. He was the first. So there was no one before him. So he's unborn. So of course his birth is coming from outside the world, if you will, right? In the form of Vishnu's lotus stem-like umbilical cord connected to Brahma, right? Very beautiful poetic descriptions in the scripture. And so Aja arrived on the scene. So he came to the scene on his swan carrier, never touching the ground. That's not, Devas don't do that. They don't touch the ground. Of course, he's going to fall off of his swan when he sees what happens here. Touch down the ground. He's going to start moving away from his ego as a Brahma into the ego as a cowherd. Incredible. Incredible. I mean, the liberation of Aghasura is incredible. Now Brahma's spiritual evolution, staggering, unbelievable. From the four-headed Brahma to transforming into a cowherd boy. He's astounded at the idea. He has Aishvarya for that idea. He's in awe of the idea, as we said the other day. But Pujala Raga Patagora Vabangi Matala Harijan Kirtanalange. We should live in awe of this ideal and speak about it when the opportunity presents itself. Not think, I think I'll just jump in there with my shoes on, and without the sufficient adhikar, I'll suddenly become a meditator on Krishna Lila and be and mityachara suchate. What does Krishna say in the Gita? Mityachara suchate. He says, don't do gyan, don't do dhyan. Yes, I've told you to move away from karma. Do nishkam karma. Of course, our teaching as that a form of that inside of it within bhakti. But in Gita, he says, don't just because you heard today that your real you is an atma. You think now you can go and sit and become a contemplative and do nothing, like the Neo-Advaitins, just sit and meditate. Popular thing, meditate. Krishna says, no, don't do that. Mityatara suchite. You will sit and meditate. You only in pretense. Only in pretense. You will be fooling yourself. And other fools will follow you. It's not so easy. No. Mityachara suchite. You may sit and look. You may walk. You may do the talk, but you have to walk the walk. Therefore, Krishna says when he's explaining, he says, how do they walk? Arjuna asks, how does he walk? How does he talk? How does he sit? All these things. Krishna says, I told you, Arjuna, about the futility of pursuing enduring happiness, as I say, in relation to things that don't endure. So you shouldn't chase after those things, but you're attached to those things. You're attached to the realm of karma. So do nishkam karma. Do your karma, in this classical sense, the prescribed duties of a kshatriya. Do them without attachment to them. Do them nicely, because they are ordained by God, but not as other people do them, attached to getting the fruits that will come from them, and driven by the desire to avoid what would happen if you don't do them. That's their life. It's like this, unsteady. It's not like you are, in your real sense, an atma, immobile, immovable, I should say. In the karma marg, in varnashram, as a path, this is what it's driven by. I'm following the dharma so that I can get this good fruit, and so that I can avoid, if I don't do it, the bad fruits. So you're moving like this. Krishna says, stop that. It's very uncomfortable anyway. Chasing after one thing, running from another. Chasing after one thing, running from another. Stop that. Sit, yes, sometime. But he says it like this. Do your duties in the varnashram. He's talking to Arjuna. This is a classical situation. We're in a different situation. Do your varnashram, but don't be attached to the results. Be a good kshatriya, the best kshatriya. But know that what you're really interested in is the atma to begin with. Not collecting good karma, avoiding bad karma, not going to heaven and coming down again. So you do it, but you don't be attached to the results. You do it because it should be done, because it's given in the scripture and so forth. And what you are after is something else. When you do it like this, then there are no karmic repercussions. This is niskam karma. Then you have no good karmic repercussions. You have no bad karmic repercussions. What repercussions are there? Gyan comes. Knowledge comes. What is knowledge? Aham brahmasmi. I'm not human. I'm an atma. My prospect is so much bigger than the human prospect. The biggest prospect of the human is that it can realize its atma. Humanity can realize its atma. That's what's big. And you don't need any money to do it. And you don't need a big education. You don't need an army to protect you. And no one can stop you. No one. You want to renounce the world? No one can stop you. Human life, this is what I said. Everything you can do with artificial intelligence except this. All your jobs will be taken away. Everything you're proud of and attached to and likes and do. They're the only thing that can't be taken away. pursuit of the self. And the self has a shelter, that is Krishna. We pursue ourself in terms of who we are, his servants, right? Good ideas to be taken to heart. So Brahma comes on the scene, yeah, right? And is astonished. He's astonished at what he heard, but he's a little late for the party at the same time, because he's only heard about what others have seen. Aga hovered in the sky, entered into the body of Krishna, attained liberation. Brahma heard about it, but he didn't see it. By the time he got there, it had already happened. Right? So this is where we hear today, this verse. And Brahma arrived a little late for the scene of Aga's deliverance, that is, after the Atma of Aga entered Krishna's body. And then Brahma also concealed himself, or hid his presence. He hid, disguised himself, hid in the background, desiring to investigate the scene. After all, he was a four-headed guy, so he wanted them. People sing songs that they're emotional. Let's check it out here. What's being claimed here is very extraordinary. Let me look into it and see if there's any truth to this. It seems hard to believe. And so, by the time he arrived, Krishna and company had moved on, and were in the midst of their picnicking, which Krishna's Aishvarya Shakti had in mind, and therefore allowed Aga to come on the scene, because they were playing so hard they forgot to eat, right? So she needed to create a distraction, and she did, by allowing Aga to come in, otherwise he couldn't have come there. And so many complicated, wonderful points and teachings coming out, right? So by this time now, they're picnicking. Right? The brood sat in concentric circles, resembling the petals and leaves of a lotus around the whirl, its whirl, and that whirl was Krishna. And each and every boy experienced that he alone was face to face with Krishna. And as such, they beamed beautifully, their eyes blossoming. Bhagavatam 10:13:8. The first verse was Bhagavatam of this chapter, 10:12:35. 10:13. So he came, and this is what he saw. He saw the aftermath, if you will, which is even more bewildering. To see all these boys seated. So Sukadev introduces the scene here. First, the boys are introduced, what he saw, and then in the next verse, Krishna will be his vision of Krishna, what he saw. Now, this is the beginning of Brahma's transformation. He's, we enter into Krishna consciousness. We learn so many points, and we practice, and we think we've understood it. If we keep good association, we'll keep realizing, I didn't quite get it. Well, that's what it means. That's what that verse says. Oh, it has that meaning also. So that's why we need good association. So we're always on the edge of our seat and flexible, ready to stand up, sit down, stand on your head, move left, move right. You have to be very, very flexible. You have to be at least this flexible, as I said the other day. You have to be this flexible. Chinadopi sunichena. You have to have a big enough heart that your head does not outswell it, right, and cause it to shrink. Let the heart become big, let the head become small. Gyan Sunya Bhakti. I just need enough knowledge how to serve Krishna best in any given instance. That's all the brain I need. Hmm? And that's the biggest brain you could possibly have, right? Brain fueled by the heart, touched by faith, coming from our Guru Parampara, put into practice, right? Faith is not fence sitting, right? It's active. It's the animating principle in life. So, whether we have faith through good sadhu sangha, then we're going to be expressing ourselves, and sharanagati would lead to bhava, and such a prospect of entering into this type of play of Krishna, which in the Prakat Lila has many other features of extraordinary enlightenment of Brahma, for example. Wow. The Nitya Siddhas get to watch that. So we'll stop with this and we'll describe a little bit about this setting, these boys, in the next session, and something about Brahma's vision of Krishna. Very significant, important descriptions that can help us in our meditation. Grantara Srimad Bhagavad Ki Jai, Shri Siddhaji Gopal Ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Oh, I thought the offering was over, just starting. We have a little more time, but any questions today? Yes?
Very much that knowledge that you mentioned, that, for example, Rupa Manjari should comment and say to this world, and she would have so much knowledge. So I was thinking about it, it's a completely different knowledge that what people think in general, and it seems to me that all of that comes from her relationship with Krishna. And you mentioned yesterday about the most comprehensive knowledge comes from Lovi. So I was thinking, like for us, for example, in relationship with you, with our guru. So like in general, like how people in general understand guru is like someone who gives you information, kind of guide you, advise you, or something like that. But isn't that because we are after completely different kind of knowledge? So isn't it, of course, there's all the wealth of information from Guru, but isn't that more important that?
Prabhupada had only one question of his guru. Is this what you're asking?
Yes.
What was Prabhupada's question? He said, I only had one question for my guru. Agi?
How can I serve you?
That kind of, yeah. Well, we can ask other questions, of course, with a view to help us in our service to our guru, but often we ask baggage, and he's kind of like a garbage collector. He collects the garbage, and then looks inside. Is there anything in there that's valuable? There's something. Grab that, give that to Krishna. I'll take the garbage, collect that, and burn that up. He's a garbage collector. So, yeah, but when we know that, we might, it will help us in our approach. What else? Another question? Yes.
Logic, it's actually, I forgot what you said, but it's kind of useless.
It has its limitations, yeah.
And so I was just thinking, in the preaching field, that's different, right? Because Prophet said you can preach through logic or shastra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a word about logic. Thank you for your question. Um, there's two types of logic. Kebal yukti, yukti means logic, Kebal yukti and Shastra yukti. So we reject Kebal yukti. In other words, Kebal yukti is logic unto itself, as a means of arriving at comprehensive knowing, by which I would become fully satisfied. Why else do we want to know, right? Ultimately, we're pursuing our own happiness, our own fulfillment. We're not fulfilled. We seek to know, to understand. So, logic unto itself, if you take history of Western civilization, largely Europe was driven by faith when Christianity prevailed and Rome caved, and Pauline Christianity, Paul's kind of Christianity, which is, anyway, his story, became popular, then the Catholic Church, Rome was like the capital of Europe, right? And so, but in time, some of the teachings of Aristotle, for example, were surfaced and so forth, and different reasonings and whatnot about life, and those reasonings couldn't be denied, and so they needed to balance the faith with reason, to balance faith with reason. So it's one thing to be just following by faith, another thing is to reason about faith. We call that latter theology, reason about faith. But in Western history, Western civilization, the thinkers reasoning about faith largely unhinged from revelation. I mean revelation. Let's say knowing comes from revelation. If you want to know, have perfect knowledge, you need a perfect method. So the perfect method is like this. This is the perfect method. You fold your hands. You can't go like this. You get it? You can't just churn your head to get it in your logical faculty. No, it's beyond. Life is beyond reason. It's beyond reason. We constantly see that life in general transcends reason. You can reason about certain things to a point, but life itself transcends reason. And you can get so many arguments where two people can argue about the same point and make equally good arguments, and it's just this goes on forever, right? One logic supplants another, and so forth. So, revelation. I'll give it to you another way. Pujapachita Maharaj used to say, "How can the finite know the infinite? If you're finite, how can you know the infinite?" Know means to understand, means to capture. So it's not possible for the finite to capture the infinite. But if the infinite, out of its infinite capacity, chooses to reveal itself to the finite, then the finite can know. Do you understand? That's super logic. But so the point is that for comprehensive knowing, we need a perfect method. So who knows everything, if he reveals us, which is beyond our capacity to know, then we can know. It's like the UFOs, Only a few people see them. They only show themselves to a few people. You looked out of your backyard and there was a UFO. You went in and tell everybody, when they come to the window, he's gone. But you saw him. They showed themselves to you, not to anybody else. And then you can't convince anybody. All your friends think you're crazy, but you saw. You're a marked person now. You were beamed up for a minute. You saw. So you got to go join a UFO club. Get sadhu sangha with other people who have seen We've been touched by this. You cannot get away from it. That's what we're doing. So, he's an unidentified flying object, Krishna. Unidentified, unknown. The unknown made himself known for a moment. We've been touched by that, right? So, revelation, reasoning about the implication of revelation, like you take the Bible or the Bhagavad and so forth, to reason about the implication, that's called theology. But if you separate your reasoning from revelation and independently on the strength of revelation alone try to know, then you cannot arrive at comprehensive knowledge. But you can reason about the implications of revelation. That's called Shastra Yukti. That's what you're talking about. So we say that just by, if you just, and people have been doing it for centuries, just working with their intellect to try to figure everything out, right? And they're not becoming perfectly happy. If anybody's happy, it's the mystics, and this is what they'll tell us. This kind of thing. That logic is not a suitable vehicle for going there. Let us say, if you want to bring God to, let's bring the case. Is there a God? Let's bring it to court. So if logic is going to be the judge and the jury, well, God is not going to show up. Neither is the soul. It's not going to show up. It's beneath him to show up. I'm beyond you. We should be happy to know there's something that's beyond intellect, its limitations. Another way to look at it, intellect is the function of doubting. We intellect, we doubt, we question. Descartes said, I doubt, therefore I am. He reasoned about it. So so in a realm where intellect is thought to be the guiding force, the means through which exercising we'll become perfectly happy. How is that possible from a logical point of view? When the whole purpose of intellect is to doubt. It's a doubter. If the doubts can be removed, then what is the need for intellect anymore? There's no need. Therefore, Gyan Shunya Bhakti. If the doubts can be removed, then Bhakti, this Mahaprabhu said, yes, Gyan Shunya Bhakti. When Ramananda Roy said, talked about Shuddha Bhakti, he said, yeah, now you're getting somewhere. Gyan Shunya Bhakti. And Braj is the fullest example of Gyan Shunya Bhakti. They don't even know that Krishna is God. They have no doubts. At home, with your children, if you put food on the table, you say, eat this, your children don't go, well, let me check that out. What's in it, Mom, They know you're a nice devotee, you love them, you raise them. In a homeland, there are no doubts. There's just free movement. In a realm where intelligence is the guiding force, you're proceeding with caution. Intelligence means I proceed with caution. So a realm in which intellect is the guiding principle, we're never going to be the homeland. It cannot be free. It cannot be happy. If the doubts are removed, we don't need intellect anymore. The only intellect we need to know is how to best serve Krishna in any given instance. Should I continue to allow him to suckle my breast and let the milk that is for him boil over? Or shall I put him down and tend to the milk? This is the kind of intelligence Yashoda needed. Discriminating power. She thought, this milk has been gathered by Nanda Maharaj at my request, because Krishna was going out and stealing milk from other people. And I told him, what kind of father are you? What kind of king of cowards are you? Our son is going and stealing milk from everybody else. Why don't you get some good cows here? So he selected best cows, put them on special grasses, and that milk she was boiling on the stove. And everybody was gone, all her assistants for the Indra Puja, Indra Yagya, making big preparations, alone with her son. Hmm? So the milk from those cows that is very dear to Krishna. Hmm? So should I serve that which is dear to Krishna, or should I serve Krishna? She decided, let me serve what's dear to Krishna. Hmm? And a beautiful lila came out of that, right? Hmm? As Tadiya Seva, what is dear to Krishna. When Shiva was asked by Parvati, what is the best kind of worship? He said, Aradhananam Sarvesham, Vishnu Aradhanam Param. He said the best service, the best worship is the worship of Vishnu. And Parvati thought, oh, I worship you. I guess I don't do the best worship. So intuiting what she felt, Shiva said, Aradhananam Sarvesham, Vishnu Aradhanam Param, Tasmat Parataram Devi Tariyanam Samarchanam. But, however, Devi, serving that which is dear to Krishna is higher than worshipping Krishna or Vishnu. And then she thought, oh, that's you. You're very dear to him. You're his devotee. I worship you. I'm doing the highest worship. Hmm? Krishna worships his own devotees, so, right? Hmm. So, but yes, reasoning has its place. To reason about the implications of what the Bhagavad Gita is saying, what the Bhagavad is saying, this is called Shastra Yukti. Hmm? So when we have firm standing in bhakti, to the extent that we do, we can reason about the implications of the scriptures and kind of land on our feet, so to speak, with new insights and improved insights for pursuing the path. So yes, there's a place for logic and reasoning. The Bhagavatam, it says to us in effect, bring your reasoning here, bring your logic, bring it, bring it. I invite you, come on. Hmm? This is what the Bhagavatam says, bring your logic. Hmm? And I will discuss with you, and it will be retired. Hmm? I will put it aside. Hmm? Pay close attention. Nistra prayeshu abhadashu nityam bhagavata seva. Bhagavati uttama slokir bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. If you study Bhagavatam, you'll become nishta. You won't be going here and there on shaky ground. You'll be standing on the ground of the Atma, in Advaigyan, where you can do bhajan, real bhajan, in non-dual reality, above the dualities of material existence. You can do real bhajan to Krishna. Bhagavatam will take you there. It will retire your intellect. Why? It's good logic. Right? We're using good logic, is the point, right? We're using it in relation to the revelation, to explain it, to retire Keval Yukti. Because Keval Yukti, that is like, if you do real Shastra Yukti, you're going to have a baby. If you do Keval Yukti, Prabhupada said, that is just mental masturbation. Nothing will come from that. And they've been doing that for centuries, reasoning about it one way or another, and nobody's happy. People fighting over a desert in the Middle East, over what they think God wants. I mean, and people taking sides, and the Gaudiya Vaishnava channel. So yes, logic has its place, reason has its place, and and our practice is a transrational practice. Chanting is not a rational practice; it's not irrational, but it's a practice that transcends reasoning. We heard from the scripture: you chant these words, you'll get this result. Okay. Yes.
Haridas Thakur,
Yeah.
he chanted out loud and silently. So how should we chant?
Haridas Thakur chanted 3 lakhs a day. That's 64 rounds times 3, right? So he chanted 1 lakh manasi japa, in the mind. 1 lakh upamsa, whispering, that he could hear it, but nobody else. And 1 lakh out loud, that other people could hear. When japa, nam japa, is performed in manasik or upamsa, in the mind or whispering, then it is an anga or a limb of the anga of smaranam. Some limbs of bhakti, on the body of bhakti, like smaranam, kirtanam, they have sublimbs also, right? So smaranam, one of the main limbs of bhakti articulated by Prahlad, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasim, Sakyamatmani Vedanam, Smaranam. A sub-limb of Smaranam is japa. When the japa, for example, Nam japa, we're talking about, is done silently or whispering, then it is a sub-anga of Smaranam. Right? When it's done out loud, that others can hear, then it's a sub-anga of Kirtanam. Therefore, sometimes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Haridas Thakur's chanting is described as Sankirtan. The word is used. He did Sankirtan. So it means those were the lack of rounds he was doing out loud. He did it out loud and converted the Maya, personified, right, who came in the form of a prostitute to distract him from his vows and test him, right? That's Brahma Haridas. That's all this part of this whole Brahma Vimoha and Leela, right? Brahma learned something. So, which one is better, right? This is your question. What should we do? The different ways to think about that. Typically, one answer is whatever works best for you. Whatever works best to help you focus on the name. Otherwise, it's thought that the capacity to focus the mind silently is a progressive development in one's sadhana. As the heart becomes more cleansed and so forth, one can sit with the mind without it being distracted. Whereas if you can't do that, right? You're doing kirtan. Well, here's the tongue, here's the mouth, and here's the ear, and in between's the mind. So something like that. From the power of kirtan, the mind will be arrested. And without that power of kirtan, then the average person is going to have a difficult time arresting the mind. So the capacity to arrest the mind is a developmental stage. So just like you sit, you do yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahar. People want to sit and do meditate. You should say, sit and do asana. Try that. In the classical system, you do asana. Now that asana is good for the body, but it's good for the mind too, right? And then you pranayam, so that in the body, the breath is essential. So you control the breath, and as you breathe, concentrate on the breath, the mind comes. Then you do pratyahar. You withdraw. This is yoga. You withdraw the mind from other thoughts. You constantly draw. It goes there. You draw it back. It goes there. You draw it back. When you become proficient in that, then dhyan. Dhyan means meditation. So people want to meditate. Try something else first. Yama niyama. What about that? Yama niyama means what is the moral basis of your spiritual practice? The heart of spiritual practice, its mystic dimensions, arise out of a moral foundation. that most religions preach about is the all in all, the moral foundation. Don't do this, don't do that, right? Hmm? So there are yeah, there are the yamas and the yamas. Hmm. There are things that are in our school. There are things that are favorable to bhakti, things that are unfavorable. You got to get that foundation down. You get that foundation down, just see what happens. You do only what's favorable for Krishna bhakti. You don't do what's unfavorable. You reject that. You have a new criterion of what's good and bad. It's not the criterion that arises in your mind that says, I think this is good, because you've got some scars for thousands of lifetimes of doing that and liking it, even though it's bad for you. Your mind says, that's good. Oh, I shouldn't think that, but it's good. My mind goes, I don't want it, but my mind goes there. And I don't like that, but it's good for me. So a new criterion. If it's good if it's pleasing for Krishna, for bhakti, it's bad if it's not. When you have that in place, you transcend these other goods and bads within the mind. Now you're above the duality of good and bad, happy, sad. Now you can do bhajan, real bhajan. So the point I'm raising, and it's in the Gita as well, and we talked about it earlier, don't sit down, do nishkam karma. Then, because you're no longer chasing the fruits and avoiding the bad, you're steady, you're doing the practice, you're detached, gyan comes. More the gyan comes, this is the way it comes. This is the way to get the knowledge, this kind of knowledge. Then knowledge of the self arises, the hearts become clean, then you can sit, right? So it's a progression. Therefore, sometimes it's thought that the manasik japa is for those who are more progressed. They can do, or upamsa, where you just whisper and you can hear. So an argument can be made like that. But another argument, again, as I began, is whichever one works best for you. Right? Now, another argument can be made that chanting out loud is best, because when you chant out loud, other people will hear and they'll be benefited, and because you benefited someone else, you'll get extra benefit. So good for you. And now, so there's different arguments that can be made for one over the other, right? And it depends. Prabhupada, I think he emphasized his devotees to chant out loud, and I think it was wise, because he's kind of making the point. Kirtana prabhave smarana svabhave. It's an anga of kirtan. Kirtan has great power to help us capture the mind. So I think you hear the sound and listen to it. I mean, that's all you have to do is listen to it. Listen, like it was your favorite song. It will be in time, because any other song that you like, pick your favorite song. I mean, secular song, but pick it. Anyone. You're a musician. You know many songs. Agni. Pick your favorite song. Pick your favorite song, whatever it is. The number one that's ever been in the pops or whatever. Or classical music, Beethoven. Sit down. I'll put you in a room. I'll turn on this music. And in due course, you will be running out of words, and his qualities, and his parshad, his associates, and his leelas, all come out of the name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Nam ki jai, Nam Sankirtan ki jai, Kali Yuga Dharma ki jai. Gaur Premanande, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubheva-cha, Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanande.